So what I'm going to try and do is outline essentially what Bitcoin is at a pretty high level. Has anyone actually heard of Bitcoin? Raise your hands, give me a holler. Yeah, cool, all right. So I'm going to go through at a high level what Bitcoin is, and hopefully I'm going to answer some of your questions, and then we'll hand over to Ron after that. So I am the current president of the Bitcoin Association of Australia. We're an official affiliate of the Bitcoin Foundation in the US, and what we do is, our mandate is to basically educate people, promote Bitcoin in Australia, and make sure people have a point if they need to know anything. So what is Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin is two things. Bitcoin with a big B is a payment protocol, and what that means is it allows the decentralized movement of things from one place to another. No one has to trust anyone, and it's the first time it's been done, which is kind of strange given that we're in 2014 already, but here we are. Bitcoin with a little b is the unit of currency. So if I'm going to go and buy a beer for a Bitcoin and not pay for a hotel perhaps, then I would use Bitcoin as a little b. Bitcoin is denominated in something called satoshis, much like Australian dollars is denominated in something called cents. Except with the Australian dollars, there's 100 cents in each dollar. With a single Bitcoin, there's 100 million satoshis. So there's a lot of room for movement there. Much like cash, Bitcoin is a push-based paradigm rather than pull. What that means is that I have to give someone my Bitcoin. Someone can't take them from me. All right, so that's great, but what is it? Well, the Australian Tax Office came out just recently and said that Bitcoin is a truck of coal. It's a bushel of wheat or a nugget of gold. It's a commodity. And as much as that, well, for GST, and as much as that disappoints me, I can't say that they haven't done their research. They consulted industry, and they have to work within the confines of the framework in which they have, the GST legislation, and the prevailing opinion is that Bitcoin is actually a commodity. So Bitcoin is money, a protocol, and a commodity. Yes, it is. Bitcoin is actually something pretty unique. In terms of a payment system and a unit of currency, nothing like this has actually been seen before. We've had previous currencies which have sort of been centralized, e-currencies. If anyone was alive back in 2000, you probably remember Beans. That was a startup that died along with the tech boom. But that was centralized. So once that company went away, the value of the beans went away as well. Bitcoin has no owner. In fact, everyone is an owner of Bitcoin and no one is an owner of Bitcoin. Anyone can participate in the Bitcoin network just by having a wallet or being part of the mining community. No one controls it, and it's just the most unique thing that we've come across in the finance area for a long time. A lot of people ask me, is Bitcoin safe? And I guess, yeah, it's pretty safe. That's the short answer. But the long answer is, there's a huge amount of cryptography involved in this. And this is the algorithm for SHA-256. And that's an implementation of part of the cryptography suite that makes up Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is money, a commodity, and it's safe. That's great. Cool. How do I use it? Well, you use these things called wallets. Oh, okay. It's not like that. You don't need to actually bring a train of coal to do it. You actually use a wallet. And that's what a wallet would look like on an Android phone. So you can see that there's no money in that wallet there, and you can see an address here and a QR code. So what you do is when you want to use your Bitcoins and you want to pay for something, you open up your wallet, you bring up the camera app and you scan the QR code. What happens then is you then press send and that money's sent. In this case it's $7. And once that money's been sent, or those Bitcoins have been sent, you can't get them back. They're gone forever. If you've made an overpayment or you've accidentally done something, then you have to rely on the other party to be gracious enough to give that back to you. So In a merchant context, that's really great because guess what? There's no such thing as chargebacks anymore. There's no such thing as credit card fraud. And probably one of the best examples of this is there's a company in the United States, and an electronics retailer, they turned over $300,000 worth of stock last year. They accept payment in Bitcoin only, and they sent them to high-risk areas, traditional high-risk areas like India and Pakistan. And out of $300,000 worth of turnover, they had literally 0 scams. So this is a really powerful thing. Who's using Bitcoin? There's a few brands that you may have heard of. Some that you probably have heard of. So Dell is using it, Cheap Air, Expedia. Dish is a $1 billion cable company in the US. Probably most people have heard of Virgin Galactic and Overstock. Mastodon up there is a band, a heavy metal band, and they released their album that you could buy for Bitcoin only, and guess what? It went to #1. So yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Look, I'll just reiterate a couple of things that Jason touched on as to what Bitcoin is. So forgive me if it's a little trite, hopefully not. More exciting. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a currency. It's used like a currency. It's traded like a commodity, and it's a payment processing network, not unlike FPOS, Visa, etc. I got involved with 4 of my partners, and we set up a company April of last year, so about 17 months ago, called BitTrade Australia. BitTrade Australia is one of the country's leading fixed currency Bitcoin exchanges. So we'll buy and sell Bitcoin from the general public through our website, btradeaustralia.com. Payments are accepted at bank branches, or you can use FPOS to send bank transfer, and we'll issue your Bitcoin within a couple of hours. It's very exciting. We've seen a number of businesses pop up over those 17 months. I think in the early days there were only 2 or 3 of us. There's now, I think, pushing close to 100 Bitcoin-centric businesses. The ATO has recently come out and stated there are over 1,000 Bitcoin merchants that are accepting Bitcoin across the country. In fact, in Canberra, I know you can go to an ATM at the mall, buy your Bitcoin, cross the street, get a coffee, and then buy your bus ticket and jump on the bus and go to Parliament House, all in Bitcoin. So that's how it's being used as a currency. What else can we say? There was 3 of us came together, three founding members who created the Australian Digital Currency Commerce Association in April of this year. This was on the back of the first interest from the government, and that was the taxation office, and they were proposing to treat Bitcoin, to tax it, not unlike treat it as a barter card system. Not something we necessarily fully agree with, but we understand that within the scope of which they have to interpret the law, it seemed to make a lot of sense for them. The 3 of us that came together is BitTrade Australia. We have a mining company, a Bitcoin mining company out of Perth called Digital BTC. They're the first Bitcoin company in the world to list on a public exchange, and that's the ASX. They do some great work. They do their mining operations out of Iceland, 100% thermal renewable energy. So very impressed with their work and very proud to have them with ADCA. The third company is a Bitcoin ATM company called ABA Technology, and they're the folks who are rolling out the ATMs across the country rather. Right, so that's us. BitTrade. What is Bitcoin? You know, Jason's done a fine job, so is Seamus as well. I actually have a short 90-second video that we can all watch that would actually maybe explain it on my behalf. It might do a little better of a job than I can. I'm sorry, Matt, I don't think, are we able to click on that link? We may not be able to. If we can't, that's fine. Look, these guys have done a fine job of trying to explain what Bitcoin is. We'll put this up on our website, so if anyone's interested, as I said, it's a great 90-second video which explains what Bitcoin is and, more importantly, how it's being used. I think we're moving past the point of talking about what it necessarily is. But if I was to comment on it, I would say simply it's a very complex mathematical formula. And we know what the internet did for us come the early 90s, what it did to post and communications, and how long it took to really have the effect that it did, to the point where we see a number of post offices closing up in many countries around the world, and how it's changed the landscape there. The late 90s, it really affected publishing. We saw print change as it did. Then came early 2000s, Napster, peer-to-peer technology there. What it did to the music industry, scaled it down, changed it, made it more competitive, made it more accessible. The film industry, again, took only 3 years instead of 6 years to affect it. Music industry was 6, the film industry 3. And now it's caught up to money. And we've seen it move remarkably fast to do what it's done in the last 18 months. Now, this is something that we've been talking about for decades. They expected it to catch up to money. And the question is, why has it taken so long? And the answer is around something called digital scarcity. In the past, any digital file that's out there, you could basically copy and paste it and create it. How do you actually put an intrinsic value on it? And that's through something called digital scarcity, and that's what the Bitcoin protocol is. It's one very complicated math formula. There are 2 ways to get Bitcoin. You either buy it or sell it from somebody else, or you dedicate some of your computer to it to help solve this Bitcoin protocol, to solve this complicated math equation. We call that the blockchain ledger. Okay. As you solve it, you give your computer power over to help solve it, you can be rewarded in Bitcoin, and we call that mining. So you would mine Bitcoin by helping solve the equation. And this equation is available on the web on something called the blockchain ledger. It's a public ledger. You can see this equation being solved all across the world. You can see every Bitcoin that's ever been created. You can see every Bitcoin moving from the beginning to the very end. In many regards, it's actually an auditor's dream to be able to follow the movement of, every Satoshi or every penny across the world from A to Z. What we're dealing with now comes the next phase, which is, got off the ground, very exciting. It hit a peak there. Now it's come back, well, how do we manage it? Okay, it's great, we can see it moving from A to Z, but the issue comes down to sort of helping benchmark and put checks and balances in place to the on-ramps and off-ramps. Who is it that's actually using Bitcoin? Who owns it? Who's moving it? So one of the ways that ADCA has proposed a solution, and this is what we've been now dealing with government and regulators on over the last several months, beginning with the ATO, but now moving through many key government departments. We've engaged in some working level relationships with the people that we need to, such as RBA and ATO and ASIC and the Crime Commission, the ACCC. We've reached out and proposed a self-regulatory model for the businesses and merchants in the country who are engaged in the Bitcoin industry. A self-regulatory model with healthy government oversight. So what we've asked for. So this model, what I can talk a little bit about here today is something called an ADCA certification. We'll be rolling out over the next couple of months a membership structure. We'll see 3 membership types. We'll see partner members, associate members, and industry members. Industry members, that'll be open to Bitcoin-centric businesses, such as the businesses Jason is engaged with BitPos, BitTrade, ABA Tech, etc. There will be associate members. These are for merchants who are accepting Bitcoins. They will be able to join the association and take advantage of that type. And then finally, partner member. And this will be for government relations, counterpart associations overseas, some of the bigger enterprises, firms and brands that are out there. They'll be able to join as a partner member. The industry member is the relevant one, though, here for our purposes. They'll be able to apply for something we call an ADCA certification, and that certification is benchmarked off an AFSL, a financial services license. And these businesses will have to meet strict criteria such as background checks, acquire professional indemnity insurance, implement an anti-money laundering program, undergo audits, and they'll also be required to keep a register of their Bitcoin wallets. So we will then be able to see what businesses are connected to the public ledger and see where it's coming and going from. And this is one of the solves a lot of problems for some of the biggest questions that have been out there, both Australia and internationally. Recently, I was at a G20 sponsored event in Perth, Responsible Finance Forum, and the SME Finance Forum, where we saw people come from all over the world, asking a lot of these same questions, realizing Bitcoin is here, the cat is out of the bag, but what do we do to actually implement it and legitimize it in a way that's workable and is going to bring comfort to the established financial sector as well as regulators and government. And this certification is something that looks like it could help answer these questions and put a practical program in place that will allow us to adopt Bitcoin and digital currency in a way that actually works for everybody. It's very exciting. So we'll have more on that in the next month to 2 months. It is important. I mean, we've recently seen a speech from the Chief Information Officer of the RBA, Sarv Gurn, a great speech, and he said digital disruption. It's not a word I prefer to use. I think it's actually very beneficial and helpful. I think it's a transition. It's an opportunity of a lifetime, but on the other hand, it's also littered with risks. If you're an executive of a business or a director on a board, then the challenge is to determine if the right balance has been achieved in these extremes. But he goes on to say the biggest risk of all is to do nothing at all. Ignoring the waves of digital disruption in business and society has led to extinction for many. You only have to look at the likes of Nokia, which in spite of owning 30% of the world's mobile payments, mobile patents, finds itself struggling to stay relevant. Kodak invented the digital camera technology but failed to capitalize on it. General Motors produced the first commercial electric car almost 20 years ago, stopped its rollout, and now finds itself trying to catch up with Japanese hybrids. Bookstores, the music industry, newspapers, as you mentioned, Uber, taxis, Airbnb, all being affected, all of which were giants of their time and now find themselves trying to avoid extinction. So again, I think that it's important that with a few small front-footed steps, a little bit of agile thinking, practical solutions that we put in place now, we can help establish strong, meaningful on-ramps and off-ramps and adopt Bitcoin as a technology. And with that, as we continue to work through these questions and challenges about adopting this new, exciting, yet somewhat disruptive technology, transitionary technology, it does open up a lot of opportunity. BitTrade Australia, our company, is just this week launching a wealth management portal. Now there's 3 phases to it. We're only in our first phase, but essentially it will allow you and the financial services sector, wealth management sector, to be able to access this technology, this fin technology, this new emergence on the web in a way that you can bring to your clients. We might actually just take a little sneak peek. If you're interested, we can take a little look. Are we able, Matt, to click on this? There we go. Right. So this is brand new. You're the first people seeing this today. Wealth.btradeaustralia.com. I'm going to log in here, and in here you'll find some pretty exciting tools and news feeds and information that can help you guys keep your finger on the pulse and ahead of the curve to answer your clients' questions as well. So we'll log in, and what you'll see is at the top of the page, you'll see a scrolling ticker of the different global exchanges around the world, Bitcoin exchanges, a scrolling ticker with news links, welcome S3 on the right-hand side, headlines. So this is relevant headlines. So you'll see news related to the wealth management sector and to regulatory progress that's occurring. We welcome your feedback, of course. Have your say. Tell us what's important. What kind of tools would you like to see? How would you like to see this developed? Because we're at a phase now where there's some low-hanging fruit and we can implement the tools you're going to need and the services, and we'd love to hear from you. If you scroll down, we can take another look here. Charts, information to see how Bitcoin's moving. And down again to the bottom, you'll be able to subscribe for weekly updates, newsletters on what's happening in the Bitcoin and digital currency world. And finally, if you'd actually like to, you're welcome to buy and sell Bitcoins yourself to give it a try. Now, this is only for individuals, for yourselves as private individuals. This simply accesses our retail unit, but it is through our wealth management portal.